Look, it is a great pleasure to join you here from Melbourne, where the weather isn't quite Queensland. Now, I do need to sort something out with Bishop John. AI, Anglican identity, that's what you're expecting me to speak on tonight.
Anglican identity, there'll be folk here who will be delighted.
Right. Or artificial intelligence. Right, okay, well, fortunately I've got two scripts and I'll use the second. So, as you know, I run ISCAST. It's an acronym that is too long to say, so I won't say it, but our tagline is Christianity and Science in Conversation. I also happen to be the Melbourne Archbishop's advisor for science faith education. ISCAST is about promoting a constructive conversation between science and Christianity. We do that from, at one level, publishing an academic journal, to the other extreme, speaking for 7 minutes in a chapel service in a school. We often take scientists into schools, and we also do PD sessions for teachers. One memorable session was at St Margaret's in Brisbane, where I tag teamed with Dr. Sarah Sweet, a local astrophysicist. Sarah wowed the girls with her photos and descriptions of the universe. Then, when it was my turn to speak, she sat down and breastfed her young son David. What a model for the girls of an integrated mother, Christian and scientist. So if you're connected to your local Anglican school, and I know we've got chaplains here too today, we would love to hear how ISCAST can help them manage what is often a fraught discussion, the discussion about science and faith. In our recent surveys of about 3,000 people, 60% of secondary students in faith-based schools said that science and faith are in conflict. What a challenge for our schools and our churches. Enough of ISCAST. I was invited to offer some reflections for clergy on AI, and we've sorted out which AI we're talking about. So let me turn to my artificial intelligence script. Where am I? I've lost my script, you see. In thinking about AI and your conference theme, common purpose and shared joy, I must say I found myself a little bit stumped. I think the problem's an ontological one. AI, by its very nature, has no purpose of its own, and likewise has no emotions like joy. So rather than contributing significantly to your theme, let's stop pretending and just call this a sort of pre-dinner reflection on AI and techno-optimism. For the uninitiated, it's a bit of a primer. My reflection consists of 3 parts. First, a brief overview, just in case you haven't found an hour or 2 every day to follow the rapidly developing AI story. Secondly, I'll offer some thoughts on the ethical and theological issues raised by the current wave of techno-optimism. And finally, I'll give you my free and unsolicited advice. Disclaimer: while I am an interested layman, I am no AI expert, so feel free to retain that which is good and ignore the rest. Welcome to the age of what Shoshana Zuboff has coined surveillance capitalism, where our correspondence is filtered through the service of Microsoft or Google, where our internet searches and our purchases are carefully logged and fed back to us as targeted ads. And welcome to the age of large language models and image generation, where free online tools such as ChatGPT can write an undergraduate essay or a sermon on any topic, where a text description can be turned into a new artwork or video, and where created from scratch human faces, and naked bodies too, can be indistinguishable from real people. In sum, welcome to the age of this revolution, in computing that we call artificial intelligence. And welcome to the age of techno-optimism, a time when Silicon Valley billionaires are overwhelmingly upbeat about where the overlapping domains of AI and biotechnology will take us. Now, despite the artificial intelligence boom of the last couple of years, which brought AI to the awareness of all, machine intelligence has been with us for decades. Computers have been beating chess grandmasters for over 30 years. Almost autonomous vehicles have navigated traffic almost for as long. However, with increased computing power and fueled by massive amounts of training data and electricity, but that's another story, machines which mimic the neural networks of the human brain now offer text and visual outputs indistinguishable from the work of human creators. AI offers many beneficial possibilities. Commonly cited benefits include those in healthcare, including diagnoses and drug design, in business by automating tasks and data analysis, in industry, for example, robot manufacturing and quality control, in education, especially in the area of individualised tutoring, in personal life management, with virtual assistants mooted to replace the PA, and in research with the analysis of vast data sets and predictive modelling. In short, the useful applications of the power of intelligent computing for social good and efficiency are claimed to be myriad. However, while the possible benefits of techno-science and harnessing the power of machine learning range from the obvious to the previously unheard of, the ethical challenges are numerous, from familiar problems such as job losses to theologically profound questions surrounding what it means to be human. Before turning to specific theological questions, let me briefly mention some of the concerns that Christians might share with other people. These are not comprehensive, and there are overlaps between them. The massing of personal information in the hands of those who don't have our welfare in mind is a familiar but escalating problem, because AI requires huge data sets for its learning. Those data sets are amassed from emails, locations, smartphone photos, the web interactions that we have, physical actions captured by CCTV, and the swathes of other information online. One example, in 2019, 5 years ago now, the New York Times harvested facial images from a public camera feed. They then spent $100 on facial recognition software, and for ethical reasons, they chose to identify only one person with his permission, a local academic. They know what he had for lunch, who he met, and what time he came and went. Secondly, the hallucination and accuracy problem. AI outputs are dependent on the training of the system and on the data set that an AI is trained on. It makes up a statistically likely answer with no reference to the real world. Its outputs are only as good as the information that it imbibes. So AI results can be a product of biases or factual errors, or simply a void in the training data. In 2015, again 5 years ago, after identifying a bias against women in its recruiting tool driven by AI, Amazon attempted unsuccessfully to retrain the tool. In 2018, the tool was deemed unusable because the AI continued to sort applicants in ways that would be deemed discriminatory. While adept at finding patterns, AI doesn't understand concepts such as objectivity or truth. Its outputs are statistically probable combinations with no necessary correlation to evidence or truth value. The alignment problem arises because AI systems are not truth aware. Neither can they be morally discerning. If trained on imbalanced or unfiltered data, AI can amplify these biases. The alignment problem is about how to ensure that AI systems are aligned with human values and principles. Early iterations of AI chatbots were turned off within hours after they went rogue, emulating the worst of the online human interactions that they'd been trained on. Associated with the alignment problem is the autonomy problem. This occurs when AI is given control of, quote, decision-making. How is it possible to ensure that AI controllers of systems such as power grids, telecoms, or stock markets make the right decisions? Self-driving cars exemplify the challenge. On the one hand, there are clear benefits of AI controlling a car by reacting more quickly and being more alert than a human driver. On the other hand, AI makes decisions, quote, according to built-in parameters with statistical likelihoods, but it's impervious to moral responses that a human being makes in a split second. For example, swerving to avoid a pedestrian or kangaroo, even if it means damaging the car or endangering another passenger. This raises critical questions. Who is responsible for an accident involving AI? Can pre-programming truly encompass every moral dilemma that a car might face? The black box problem arises because the neural networks on which AI is based are, by their very nature, opaque, impervious to close inspection. Unlike traditional computer programs, where every step can be followed, it's virtually impossible to analyse exactly why an AI makes a particular decision, because the decision-making is embedded in literally millions of statistical calculations. This makes it impossible to guarantee outputs and raises ethical concerns about whether AI can be trusted in high-stakes applications. In sum, there are significant ethical questions to be asked about the use of this sort of technology. These ethical concerns arising from AI are going to be shared by many people and are not concerns specific to Christian faith. However, in considering the vision of what AI and bioengineering might mean for enhancing future human beings, Christian theological concerns come to the fore. How should we think about the use of AI and biotechnology to enhance human bodies beyond the bounds of what has previously been thought possible? This is the realm where AI blends with what is commonly called transhumanism. The transhumanist vision is to pick up the process of biological evolution and give it a prod. Humans have evolved to this point, transhumanists say, but we have so far to go. Integrating AI and biotechnology puts it within the power of humans to take charge of our own evolution. In a move that takes humankind from therapy to enhancement, some techno-enthusiasts, including the World Transhumanist Association, say that we don't just want to be well, we want to be better than well. This is a vision of endless improvement and amounts to a new ideology, a sort of secular version of immortality on its own grounds, as one commentator has said. Are there strains here of Genesis 11 and a new Tower of Babel, I wonder? In the transhumanist vision, human functioning as we know it is not enough. This vision looks to the use of AI and biotechnology to enhance human physical and mental processes beyond this. It's about prolonging and improving human life. Some, such as Elon Musk and Brian Johnson, are investing in brain-machine direct connections to enhance human cognitive ability. Listen to one enthusiastic supporter, Ray Kurzweil, a senior engineer at Google, who looks forward to computers having human intelligence, our putting them inside our brains, connecting them to the cloud, expanding who we are. Today it's here in part, he says, and it's going to accelerate. We're going to get more neocortex. We're going to be funnier. We're going to be better at music. We're going to be sexier. We're really going to exemplify all the things that we value in humans to a greater degree. However, a symbiosis between humans and machines is not brand new, and it's certainly not all bad. In fact, a deeply committed Christian man from Melbourne built the world's first bionic recreation of a human sense. ISCAST patron Graham Clark won the Prime Minister's Science Prize for the development of the bionic ear. And I know we've got one person in the room with one of Graham's inventions. At 4 years old, his kindergarten teacher asked what he wanted to do when he grew up. Graham's father was almost deaf, and Graham's response was definite. I want to fix ears. And that's the title of the book that we published when Graham walked into the office and said, will you publish my autobiography? Short advertisement, you can buy it after this talk on the table outside, along with another couple of ISCAST books. Scientists and engineers trained under Graham at Melbourne University are now working on a bionic eye. As well, they've inserted an electrode into a patient's brain, allowing them to control a computer just by thinking. Long term, this technique will allow a person to control bionic limbs. David Graydon, who is the chair of neural engineering at Melbourne, is also a Christian. David is happy to say that he's following in the footsteps of the Master, enabling the deaf to hear, the blind to see, and the lame to walk. These people believe that God has given humanity the calling and often the means to restore people to health and what we might loosely call normal human functioning. But the ideology of transhumanism goes much further. For the transhumanist, the point is to use technology to enhance human physical and mental capacities beyond current human functioning. The Holy Grail is life without limit. Further into the realms of science fiction are hopes that one day it will be possible to download all the information in a human brain. For those who dream of such things, the logic goes like this. If the essence of a human being is the information contained in the brain, then the information that makes you, you, can be downloaded to a hard drive. Before considering some theological questions about where AI and biotechnology might take us, let me point to one more very serious proposal by some philosophers, that of techno-redemption. Some people argue that genetic engineering has brought us to the point where we should take seriously the possibility of morally enhancing future humans. While the word sin is not used, the proponents argue that there are many things very wrong with the world, and indeed very wrong with many human beings. In a networked world where the internet allows an individual access to global companies and government databases, a single person has unprecedented destructive powers. This is the argument of philosophers such as Australian Julian Savulescu at Oxford. They say that we should consider genetically modifying future human beings to reduce the risk that people will engage in acts of what they call ultimate harm. Here is one commentator's paraphrase of the argument. Given that technology will increasingly give all of us the power to inflict ultimate harm, either quickly and individually in the case of bioterrorism, or slowly and collectively in the case of climate change, what needs to change is us. If the world will blow up if just one of us pushes the self-destruct button, or if all of us won't stop pushing the climate change button, then what we need are human beings who can be trusted not to push that button. What we need are better people. However, what we need are better people begs the crucial question: who defines better? This argument and the techno-enthusiast enterprise depends on a vision of the good, a clear vision of what it is to be moral, what it is to be a better person. Who will decide these things in contexts where no moral framework is agreed? This is the question that C.S. Lewis asked in a short prophetic essay, The Abolition of Man. Written 80 years ago, it paints a dystopian picture of a time when a technologically powerful society is no longer constrained by an agreed set of moral principles. Going down the road of humanity, taking control of its own evolution, says Lewis, will eliminate what makes us most essentially human. The result, he says, is the abolition of humanity. If you haven't read The Abolition of Man, I do highly recommend it. Let me turn now to theological questions that challenge techno-enthusiast visions of a human AI-created utopia. The overarching question raised by future technology is about the nature of humanity. What is a human being? In a world where all things seem increasingly fluid, the Christian faith holds to convictions that directly oppose techno-enthusiast aspirations. I think at least 6 fundamental questions arise that go to the heart of what biblical faith tells us about what it means to be human. Firstly, what is our theology of the common good? Christians have a clear understanding of our responsibility to serve not ourselves, but the common good. Life is not about technological self-actualization, which seems to be the driving force of the transhumanist vision. A second question is this: what is our theology of sin? In Christian understanding, though men and women are made in the image of God, sin runs deep. Freedom from its grip entails more than tweaking genetics, if that were possible. Sin runs much deeper than what techno-enthusiasts might want to excise from the human genome. Further, in Christian understanding, sin distorts the human race. It has corporate as well as personal dimensions. Only through the work of God in Jesus Christ can it be healed. The Spirit of God works to bring this about, but we are not whole yet. To have faith that technology, informed by the ethics of an elite group, could purify the human race is, from a Christian point of view, both absurd and dangerous. This leads to another question for Christians. What is our theology of redemption or liberation? For the techno-enthusiasts, freedom from sin and evil takes place within this non-transcendent world through technology offering solutions to all problems. Heaven is what humans make of it. However, Christians look to God to ultimately transform all things. Yes, we do what we can to improve the human and planetary condition. But ultimately, Christians look for the transformation of the groaning creation. Christians don't live under the delusion that humans can rescue themselves. Christian hope is in God, the Creator and Liberator, to bring in that new creation, which the Bible calls the new heavens and the new earth. Christian hope is in the saving work of the Lord Jesus Christ to deliver us from the consequences of sin and the brokenness in our earthly lives. In the short term, Christian hope is in the work of the Holy Spirit to do this in us day by day, remaking us to be more and more like Christ. The Christian hope is not in genetics to reverse the story of Genesis chapter 3, but in God's liberating transformation of all there is, guiding human history towards its true end, the common good of creation as a whole. A fourth question: what is our theology of the body? Christian hope is found in the resurrection of the body, whatever that looks like. Since we will be embodied in the new creation, our present bodies matter. They are more than just a collection of X terabytes of information loaded into our flesh and bones that could, hypothetically, be downloaded to a robot body or uploaded to the cloud. The Word took on flesh in the prologue to the Gospel of John is the ultimate affirmation of physical embodiment. Speaking of the frailties of the body, what is our theology of suffering? Christian faith reflects a mixed attitude to suffering. On the one hand, suffering is a universal human experience seen as rooted in our brokenness due to sin. The good news of liberation from sin means that it's our duty to ameliorate suffering. However, Christians also find meaning in suffering. Suffering can be redemptive and purposeful, especially as we see ourselves united with Christ's own suffering on the cross. Suffering can be an opportunity for spiritual growth, for empathy and acts of compassion, and for deepening faith through trials. Suffering also highlights the hope of ultimate restoration, when death will be no more. The aspiration to eliminate all suffering by technological wizardry sits most uncomfortably with Christian theology. Finally, what is our theology of life everlasting? Christians await the new heavens and the new earth, inaugurated in God's time and not in ours. But this life of the ages, as the New Testament puts it, begins in this age. So Christians embrace the responsibility to be creative, to address suffering, to restore human functioning, even to prolong life, but not at all costs. Life is not prolonged by Christians in the interests of fleeing from death, which brings the hope of resurrection and our ultimate joyful encounter with God face to face. At this point, you might be thinking, well, all this is very interesting, or not, but why should a busy cleric or the church engage with the techno-scientific enterprise? Let me offer 4 reasons why I think it's essential for us to do so. Firstly, the church should engage because science reveals the hand of the Creator. The history of Christians doing science, and indeed the history of the scientific revolution, is a history of understanding science as revealing the hand of God the Creator. Francis Bacon was a Christian who did so much to give us the foundations of science as we know it. In 1605, Bacon published The Advancement of Learning, in which he formalised a metaphor that Christian scientists and others have used for centuries. It's the 2-book metaphor. Bacon says that God has 2 books, the book of his word and the book of his works, Scripture and science. So science, understood this way, reveals the hand of the Creator and draws us to God. It's ironic that Bacon's words appear opposite the title page of Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, which is perhaps the most famous example of the so-called conflict between science and faith. Darwin chose to use Bacon's affirmation of the importance of both science and faith. Let me blow it up for you. I won't read out Bacon's original words. Instead, my paraphrase, with a nod to Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is this: be sure to study both God's word and God's world. Both science and Christianity help us to know the truth about life, the universe, and everything. Another reason Christians should engage with techno-science is because technology fulfills the creation mandate. When we take the knowledge of science and use our God-given creativity, we become co-creators with God. This is the heavy responsibility given to humans in the image of God. The responsibility to use our creative gifts for good and not for evil. This is part of the outworking of the so-called creation mandate of Genesis 1, Genesis 1, verse 28. Humans are called to what one of our ISCAST founders called responsible dominion. I've already mentioned Graham Clark. Throughout Graham's work, babies born deaf are able to hear, and so they can learn to speak. In a video interview with Graham on the ISCAST website, he describes the prayer that went into his research and how he saw himself as working in God's creation and serving God by helping people. So a second reason for the church to engage with techno-science is because we have the responsibility of being co-creators, working with the Creator for God's purposes. And it's this technological ingenuity, more than any other field of human endeavour, where the Creator's gift of creativity to humanity has the potential for such amazing good, and yes, also for appalling evil. A third reason why the church should engage with techno-science is because we are called to be light in the darkness, offering hope, calling people to God, and contributing to the understandings of the common good. Given that we're immersed in a techno-science world, will we engage or retreat? In a culture dominated by science and technology, Christians must be part of the conversation about creating human futures, about the common good, about where the global community is heading. Techno-science is not one aspect of culture that we may or may not take an interest in, like sport perhaps, or music, whatever your preference is. The techno-scientific world and mindset is the air that we breathe. We are totally dependent upon the outputs of techno-science. Perhaps you're a first adopter, or perhaps you're a resistor of technology for ethical or economic reasons. Either way, we are technologically enmeshed, and that enmeshment goes way beyond mere dependency. It's not just that we're dependent on technology to do things for us. Our enmeshment in techno-science means that technology does things to us. It moulds us and forces us to think in certain ways, to behave in certain ways, to relate in certain ways. Christian and other thinkers have warned and written for decades about how technology moulds us. Jacques Ellul, Neil Postman, Marshall McLuhan, more recently Zuboff in The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, or Jonathan Haidt in The Anxious Generation, Andy Crouch in The Life We Are Looking For, or Shannon Valor in The AI Mirror, Reclaiming Our Humanity in an Age of Machine Thinking. In New Zealand, Stephen Garner has for decades been at the forefront of what is called digital theology. Incidentally, Stephen will be in Sydney for the ISCAST AI and Human Futures Conference at the end of November. Let me encourage you and your people to join us in Sydney. But unlike the authors just mentioned, those at the forefront of AI are not engaging seriously in where their creativity is taking us. A final reason why we as the church should engage with techno-science is because science is a gateway drug. As people leave the church and lose touch with traditional forms of transcendence, where do they go to be amazed and indeed to worship? They turn to the creation, to the macro and microscopic world revealed by science. How ironic that the world's most famous atheist started his talk at the Melbourne Global Atheist Convention with these words: "It is an amazing universe, and you ought to be grateful." Of course, Professor Richard Dawkins was forced to clarify. However, he said, there is no one to be grateful to. Jennifer Wiseman is an ISCAST fellow who works for NASA. She runs the Hubble Space Telescope. Here is one of her snaps revealing the wonders of God's creation. It's commonly known as the Horsehead Nebula. It took light 1,600 years to arrive at the Hubble from this star-forming region of our galaxy. How many millions of people have looked at photos like this from the Hubble and been led to ponder the magnificent splendour of the universe? Did you know there are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on all the beaches and all the deserts of this planet? If only people knew Psalm 19. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim his handiwork. The ability of science to unveil the creation is a gateway drug to the Creator. If only Christians could harness this power of the creation as it engenders awe and wonder, and then lead people to the one who is Creator and Lord of all. I think this is a missional imperative. And in a culture where the drug of choice for many people is the wonders of science, where are the people of God? So there you have it, my 4 reasons why science and technology must be front and centre for church engagement and with our culture. Let me finish now quickly with some random tips for busy clergy who have got more to do than becoming AI experts. I won't add to what I've already said about the importance of us vigorously embracing science and technology. More specifically, though, I suggest that we experiment with AI. Get a feel for it. Large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini are here to stay. We cannot be Luddites. Like Wikipedia, they are great for general information and ideas, but they are not to be trusted for factual content. Make use of them for ideas, but not for final copy. As for sermons, yes, ChatGPT wrote me a lovely 5-minute homily the other day. I could have used it, but I didn't, and pretty much for the same reasons that I wouldn't have preached a sermon, somebody else's sermon from a book. As you experiment with AI, so too you can engage your congregation in discussions about technology and its impact on our society. Help parishioners to think critically about AI and its implications. In the 20 years since the Facebook was launched, how many church conversations have we had about a technology that has totally changed what it means to be a teenager? Don't ignore AI. Stay tuned to the issues, tackle them in church. Preach once or twice a year on science and technology. Finally, let me implore you to encourage the scientists and the science lovers in your congregation. At ISCAST, we often hear of lonely scientists who don't feel affirmed or understood in their churches. Do affirm their vocations as they put into practice God's call to creativity, to making the world a better place, to uncovering the hand of the Creator. Why not point them to ISCAST as a source of resources and encouragement? In fact, why not sign up to ISCAST News yourself? And on that note, it must be time for dinner. Thank you very much for your attention.